I now can go back and say that, if you don't have the passion to do a podcast or to do anything, or if you're not willing to do it for little to no money, you need to really think about why you're doing it and not only why you're doing it, but like how will you sustain this when you don't like doing it anymore?
Welcome to Folks, Food, and Soul. This is a podcast where we will talk to many of the folks and hear lots about what's going on in the culinary space, about the contributions and innovations that African Americans have made in helping to shape the culinary table in this country. Our guest today is the highly acclaimed Nicole A. Taylor, who is a Renaissance woman. Nicole started her career out of Athens, Georgia. From Athens, she was in Atlanta, and from Atlanta, she moved to New York City. She's been doing just lots of great things, sharing the story of what's going on with African Americans in the food space. Welcome, Nicole. Thank you for joining us today.
Listen, I am honored to be on your podcast. Without you, Miss Draper, I wouldn't be able to do the things that I've done and accomplished. You definitely paved the way. You don't get your just due enough. So I just want to tell you thank you for all the things that you've done in the culinary space.
Well, thank you, Nicole. And let me just correct you on one thing. It's Charla. We'll be on first name basis. I'm Charla.
Well, I can't just come off the bat. You read all my books. I'm a Southern girl. I can't come off the bat saying, "Hey, Charla." And even though we met in person before, but I'm never going to address you in a professional setting with nothing in front of your name. That's just kind of how I was raised.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. We're going to start with your writing, and you've written several cookbooks, highly acclaimed and very popular. Your first book was the Up South Cookbook, and then you followed with Watermelon and Redbirds. Now, what led you to the subjects of those two books?
I don't know if the Up South book was highly acclaimed. That came out 10 years ago. And I did not have writing a cookbook in my bingo cards. I've always been into food. I've always hosted people. I can cook naturally. And when I moved to New York City, it was the rise and this kind of Brooklyn hipster movement. And I had a front row seat to it. And what was happening around me is people were getting cookbook deals. And I'm like, wait, I have something to say. So that kind of birthed the Up South cookbook 10 years ago. After Up South, I wrote the last OG cookbook too, which is a cookbook where I was involved with the larger team, the cookbook that's based off Tracy Morgan, the comedian, TV show that he had with the same name called The Last OG. And then for sure, Watermelon and Redbirds, a cookbook for Juneteenth and Black celebrations, which was the first cookbook dedicated to the Juneteenth holiday. I would say it's for sure. When you say that, I kind of cringe a bit, but then I'm going to lean into it and say yes, because it is the first cookbook by a major publisher that is focused on the Juneteenth and food traditions. So I'm honored. I never thought that I would be writing cookbooks. I thought that I would continue my work in nonprofits, doing environmental food justice work and maybe being a public educator. So to have a life in food and writing, it definitely was a higher being's plan and it wasn't my plan totally.
Very interesting. I wasn't aware that you had originally envisioned yourself in the environmental space there.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I worked at different nonprofits. When I first moved to New York, I worked for a parks advocacy group. When I was in Atlanta, I worked at several different companies doing public health work. But food was always in the background. And I would say I always read a lot. I am an avid reader, so there were tons of I can't say cookbooks back then, but tons of
Mhm.
books, and I always journaled. Always. I've kept a journal for at this point like 30 years. So the written word and bookstores have always been a part of who I am in a big, big way, and the public libraries.
Yeah. Yeah, we have to those libraries, we have to give them their due because they provide a tremendous service. And, certainly you mentioned in public health, well, what we eat really influences our health, and unfortunately, too many people take it for granted. They don't pay enough attention to, their well-being and what they're eating.
Yeah, it's funny when I think about you, I think about soul food a lot, and I think about how soul food is often labeled not good for you, right?
Mhm.
Or it gets villainized. Black food, our celebration foods get villainized, and I grew into understanding that you can have the good, the bad things, quotations around bad things you can have them some of the time, but you're not eating them every single day. So I understood that through my training and also through living and seeing other cultures and seeing how their traditional food ways are not villainized. But health in terms of food, in terms of being outside, I love
Mhm.
outside, connecting with people, getting on the phone, talking to people. All of those things are part of our well-being for sure.
Absolutely. Well, you shared a little bit of this at the beginning. Now, you've been outspoken about who is at the table in this, food let's call it the food media world, and you certainly shared some unspoken truths. At this point in time, how do you see, our presence in that space? Has it improved? What do you have to say about, that arena today?
Ooh, wow. Yeah, it's so funny. That question, I gotta take a pause and I gotta just take a deep breath. I was very outspoken in the early days of starting my career in New York City about the lack of black people in magazines, papers, getting cookbook deals. Um, I mean, I was a mouthpiece. Not only was I a mouthpiece, I used my platform to say the names of the people that I thought should get recognition for the work they've done in the past or the work that they were currently doing. I think that's always been a part of my ethos, not just talking about it, but
Mhm.
saying, oh, no, here are five pastry chefs. You're saying there are no black pastry chefs who worked in fine dining? No, here are the names. I know them. Um, where do I think well, let me just say this. It was very tiring doing that, Charla. I got drained. I'm like, I'm tired of talking about this all the time. And it got to a point where that question of where are the black chefs, where are the black food writers is dead because we know. And a
Yeah.
lot of people who are allies know that there are tons of black people, invisible, and some that are out here doing the work that just don't get the opportunities. I got tired of saying that and because I said it for so long, and I think what happened over the years, and I'm gonna be very frank with you, the murder of George Floyd opened up a door of people saying, "Oh,
Yeah.
let's honor the people who've been doing the work for years. Let's talk about a new generation. Let's focus on food trucks."
Mhm.
Everything just opened up. It opened up, and
Flooded o
it was amazing. It was amazing. I mean, personally, I had a tremendous boost in my career. I'll be honest with you, in the early part of my career, even when I published the first cookbook, I was struggling. I was constantly pitching, getting $500 to write pieces. I wasn't truly making a living, a sustainable living in New York. And I would
Mhm.
say for about 2 or 3 years, I'm like, oh, okay. This is what it looks like when people believe in you and give you an opportunity based on your skills, not just giving you something because
Okay.
you're Black. Um,
Mhm.
this is what it looks like. So I got a taste of that. But I will say, over the last year and a half or 2 years with the economy, and with just the current state of media in general, we know that beyond food, broader than food, media has no one really, everybody cares about the internet. Newspapers are shutting down, magazines are so thin. You pick up magazines, some of your favorites, it's like 6 pages and it used to be 60.
Yes.
um, and I sometimes feel like we've reverted back to the time when I was drumming and talking nonstop saying, "What's up with all the Black people?" Because I mean, when I look around at the Washington Post, which this may not be the best example, but I have to say it, like Aaron Hutchinson, who's freaking amazing.
Yeah.
He's
Mhm.
amazing. He worked as a finance guy, went to culinary school, and the Washington Post snagged him up, and he was working in the test kitchen there and editor and recipe developer, and he got laid off.
Well, that is such a challenge when you see who's getting laid off and the magazines that are ceasing to print, hold in your hand hard copies, such as Ebony. Ebony is now digital. And I mean, certainly there is a important place for digital, but I guess maybe I'm old school. I like to hold something in my hand.
I mean, listen, I'm almost 50 years old, and I like to hold stuff in my hand. And I think that there's a young generation of younger millennials, who are interested in books and interested in magazines.
ConAgra Brands is driven by a passion for food and is proud to support the 25th anniversary of National Soul Food Month. ConAgra chefs create quality, restaurant inspired meals consumers can conveniently prepare right at home. ConAgra also supports community efforts that provide neighbors with consistent access to nutritious food.
The work that you did at Ebony was groundbreaking. Um,
Thank you.
and in these times, we need Ebony's content more than ever. John H. Johnson, you and I'm having a brain lapse, Lord.
My predecessor, Frida Denied.
Frida Denied, who came after you?
No, who came after me? Charlotte Lyons.
There we go. You guys were giving folks recipes to cook in the lean times and in the fat on the hog times. But I would say um there are pockets in food media. I feel like we've reverted back to um where are the Black people? But there are some things that have hold steady. You still have Jamila Robinson leading Bon Appetit magazine. Um, you still have Nikita Richardson as an editor of the New York Times food section. So there are some Black people in positions to be able to move the needle or understand Black culture in a way that you see it infused into the work that they do, or the work that the publication does overall.
Well, this whole lack of information that leads us to my next question. With social media and what we see today on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and Snapchat, there is a lot of food content there. And some of it is entertaining, some of it is, I call it the good, the bad, and the ugly. And then some information that really you want to say, oh no, you really don't need to go in the kitchen. You making that kitchen a crime scene. Now, the vast array of content that's there, what are your thoughts on what some of the influencers are sharing?
Oh, well, it's funny. I have a friend who's my age and she's on Snap. I haven't been on Snapchat since it first came out. I do TikTok. I post a little bit on TikTok, but I'm like, I don't really know how to jump in. I jumped in last year on Juneteenth, and now I'm on there because I'm always trying to see what's going on. Listen, I think there's a lot of mess on TikTok. I think and there's a lot of people just doing stuff like, you know, I'll give an example of something that I think is cool, but then it kind of gets weird. There's a big trend or was a trend about sweet potatoes. People roasting whole sweet potatoes, which I love a whole sweet potato, and making food from it, like a whole dish or a whole meal from it. And I think that's amazing. But what you find sometimes on social media when it's from Black people or even Asian folks, because you see a lot of Asian people doing the sweet potato content, there's no cultural context around anything, right? It's just make the sweet potato and then do it really quick, make it 30 seconds. So what I think about social media sometimes, there are people who are doing fantastic food things and there's no cultural context, which for some people that's fine. Um, I just feel like if you are a influencer and you're making a lot of money from brands and you are Black and you're using Black food ways and you're saying Southern this, you need to make it a point to have some cultural context. Now, if you just say I'm just making food and that's not a part of your stick, fine.
Mhm.
Um, I also know that all of these platforms change and these people go away, right? It's change and morph. But what we know is when something is in print, when it's a magazine, when it's a book, um, it becomes a cultural artifact.
Mhm.
It becomes something that you can never erase, right? Um, and that's my thought always. Like, are we in a trending moment? Are you a trend or do you want to be here for the long haul? And so I put people in those categories. Is this person will Keith Lee be around for the long haul? I think he's brilliant.
Butterball is a proud 25th anniversary sponsor of National Soul Food Month. For more than 70 years, Butterball has helped families gather around great food, celebrating the traditions that bring us together. Butterball is honored to support National Soul Food Month and recognize the stories, culture, and connections that are shared through every meal. Caring for the people around your table matters, and with Butterball, delicious meals can be easier to make so you can focus on what matters most. Butterball, care hard, cook easy. Now, as we talk about what we're seeing from some of the folks on social media and in the podcast world, you were an early adopter in that arena. And now everybody is doing a podcast. What was that experience like for you? Because at the time that you were doing hot grease, there just weren't as many resources available.
Yeah, thank you for that. Yeah, I was. I was so early. I mean, that's my life story. I'm always like 10 years ahead of the game. Yeah, I hosted Hot Grease on Heritage Radio Network for like 5+ years from 2009 to like 2014. I forget the dates, but I had almost 200 shows. Um, it was amazing. It was amazing talking to people. My learnings were how to really use my voice in a way that was succinct. Um, I was able, honestly, to build my career doing that podcast at Heritage Radio Network. I mean, that was my entree into the New York City media scene, food media scene. I didn't come in through a magazine because I could not get a job at a magazine. I didn't have any bylines. I used that podcast to make a name for myself. So people who were paying attention, New York City food media people, they knew me from my podcast first. People who know me and really have followed my work can say, "Oh, I was on your podcast or I listened to your podcast." So I learned that podcast and alternative media um, is a way. to build your career if you do it right. The other thing is I didn't get paid a dime the whole time I was doing that podcast. And now I think the learnings are there's so many opportunities now for people to get paid. People are doing Patreon. People are doing becoming a part of ad networks. People are hiring managers to find brands to sponsor podcasts. Um, yeah, I realize now that like, oh wait, I should have been getting paid.
Well, that speaks volumes for your abilities and your skill set to have done more than 200 episodes and use that as a leverage to move forward in what other things you wanted to do.
Yeah, it was a little less than 200 episodes, but I would say this that I should say. More so was passion. I think
Yeah.
above all, you could probably speak to this too, to be doing this for so long, you have to really love it and have a passion, right? That means that you're willing to do it for no money or little
Very,
money.
very, very.
And so, yeah, that's my learning. I now can go back and say that, if you don't have the passion to do a podcast or to do anything, or if you're not willing to do it for little to no money, you need to really think about why you're doing it and not only why you're doing it, but like how will you sustain this when you don't like doing it anymore? Because you won't want to do it anymore.
Yeah. So when you left Hot Grease, is that because you wanted to pursue other opportunities or you had the book deal coming or how is it that you evolved from the podcast?
I wanted to work on the first book, the Up South Cookbook, which came
Okay.
out in 2015. So I was like, I think I did 167 episodes and I did a special that I produced around Jessica Harris. I was like, I just want to just take a year, work on this book, get this book out and see what happens. And then I did a few audio stories about Soul Summit, the
Mhm.
gathering that Tony Tipton Martin put together back a few years ago. So I did some audio stories, but not the consistent hot grease. So I just started pursuing other things and trying to figure out like how to make a living um writing.
Mhm. Well, I have you figured it out?
Uh, uh, you know, think it's I think it's still the same thing it's been for a million gazillion years for writing, being
Mhm.
consistent no matter what. Um I think that's the biggest thing. So have I figured it out? Nah. I think that's the part of like growing and keep living is like keep figuring it out. You never had the answers.
Well, and also you're passionate about what you're doing. You have passion for what you're accomplishing. Now, you were the executive producer of If
Mhm.
We So Choose.
I'm so proud of that little short documentary in my hometown, Athens, Georgia. The documentary about the integration of the varsity, which is like a hot dog stand. If you've been to Atlanta before,
Mm,
there's an iconic varsity that's on North Avenue, and there's also or was a smaller varsity in Athens, Georgia. So I grew up hearing the story about how my cousin, her name is Shirley Taylor or Shirley Ann, um, she was one of the protesters and trying to get the varsity in Athens to be integrated.
mhm.
So all of a sudden, I was just got intrigued by that whole story, and I was like, I want to do a documentary around it. So my dear friend, who is a actual now an accomplished director and TV and film writer who lives in LA, I was like,
Mhm.
"Hey, can you direct this? Can you get a group of people, get a crew of people to put this on?" So we had about $500, maybe $1,000, and we talked to probably like a dozen people in Athens. Sadly, about half of the folks in the documentary who are all pioneers in Athens.
Mhm.
Black pioneers from doctors to teachers. They've passed away, but we were able to get on film their story about um the opening up of of services, accommodations, restaurants for Black people in Athens. And why I think this is so important is because Black Athens, the accomplishments have always been through the lens of Charlene Hunter Galt and Hamilton Holmes,
Mhm,
both of them who I admire so deeply. But there wasn't a story about the local folks who sacrificed so much for that town to be, such a destination for Southern
mhm,
folks. So yeah, I did that film. And it's just really, honestly, a part of my storytelling arsenal. That's how I look at it.
mhm. Well, tell me this, do you have any, aspirations to do a documentary that speaks to the acquisition of Town
Mm.
in
Oh,
urban renewal?
okay, Miss Charlotte, you know about Town. Now, there is a film about Town. I wasn't involved in it, but there's a film about Town that's out. Um, so I saw it maybe 2 summers ago. I think maybe some graduate students at the University of Georgia, but yeah, and then I found out through that film that one of my dear cousins, Ben Taylor, my not even cousins, excuse me, my great uncle, who
Mhm,
is mentioned and his picture is inside of my first book, the Up South Cookbook, actually had a home in Lennon. His house was moved from Town to a neighborhood that's called Glen Haven.
mhm.
Because I was like, why is his name in the credit of this Town documentary? Um, and I reached out to the director and he was like, well, he owned a home. Then I called my mom. She was like, oh, I thought you knew that. I'm like, what? So
It's amazing.
I'm like, wait a minute. So wait, he had a house in Town. So I am not, in the mix of all the things that are happening in Athens around Town. I read it just like everyone else is reading it, but I know that they are trying to not trying. There are plans to have a African American history center or museum or place in Athens with the focus on Town. So that should be interesting. I'm there's so many stories in Athens to be told. Town is super important though.
Well, that's on your maybe list. Maybe.
Sure. I'll let Miss Hattie. Miss Hattie is one of the huge advocates in Athens around the Town. And I mean, people listen, they're probably like, what are they talking about? Town was a neighborhood that basically was decimated because the University of Georgia wanted to build dorms and wanted to expand the footprint of the University of Georgia in Athens. So all these folks basically, not lost their property. They were given not fair market value for the cost of their homes. And so that story has gone national about Town. And Miss Hattie has been the face of the Town movement in Athens. So, um, but it's so many stories to tell. Right now, my high school classmate is running for mayor in Athens. Um,
Mhm.
so we shall see.
Well, you mentioned Miss Hattie. Is Miss Hattie any relation to you, Nicole?
She is not. She's not any. I don't think so. But
Oh,
Athens is so small. Maybe.
well, I have not met Miss Hattie personally, but I have a dear friend who is related to Miss Hattie. So when you said Miss Hattie, I said, "Oh, that's Hattie."
Yes,
So
yes.
yeah,
You
you
can't
never.
talk. You can't talk about Town without mentioning her name.
Well, I'm glad Miss Hattie is doing the work that she's doing to give Town the prominence that it should have. Absolutely. So as the okay, you were the executive producer of If We So Choose, and we talked a little bit about Athens. And did you have the opportunity to visit Weaver D's before it closed?
I did have the opportunity to visit Weaver D's before it closed. And my husband and I have been together for 20 years. And the ongoing joke was, you ain't never took me to Weaver D's. So finally, which is crazy. So after 20 years of being together, he had Weaver D's this summer before it closed.
Okay, tell us. about the Maroon House.
Yes. So I'm born and raised in Athens. My husband is from Atlanta. Never in a million years that I thought that I would be living in Athens for more than a weekend. And my husband and I had been talking about buying an investment property, like a little condo or something,
Mhm.
to maybe rent out and just have a place to stay when we're going to Athens. And on a Sunday, he was like, "We should move to Athens. We should buy a house in Athens." Huh? We should go buy a house in Athens and leave New York. And the next day, I went online and I found our house. We bought this house, a mid-century modern house, sight unseen. The first day we saw it was the day that we closed. We spent about a year and a half renovating the house. There's so many of our friends and colleagues were coming down to visit, or they were like, "Oh, we're driving here. Let's stop by to see you. I'm working on a project." Just so many of our friends stopping by, staying. So this house is an informal or formal retreat house for our friends who are mostly creatives. Um, we intentionally renovated it and worked with a designer to make sure it showcased Black creativity, Black artwork, light fixtures built by Black artisans. Um, and so the Maroon House in Athens is our personal retreat house. I
I've seen the pictures. It's beautiful.
Thank you. Thank
It's
you.
beautiful.
Yeah, it's
Quite
very relaxing space. I wrote Watermelon and Redbirds there. I want to say this, it's super important for my son, who is
yeah.
born in New York, who is a New York kid, but
Mm,
he is understanding blackness, black southernness, black food ways in a very special way. He's getting to see it in the South. He's not being sent to the South for the summer, which I
mhm.
don't think that really happens anymore.
Or that's a different lifestyle than the one that I was exposed to. So it certainly is definitely a key part of one's learning experience and really helps us all become better, rounded, and balanced people than seeing everything from the point of view of our own address as we grew up.
Mhm. Totally. I mean, I talk about that a lot in the book in Watermelon and Redbirds, like how I gleaned um how to host, how to entertain. I got
Mhm,
that from being around other people outside of my address in Athens. I think
mhm,
about my high school mentor who was running a employment training program in my high school. We were reconnected after 30 years. Black woman, she'd gone to college, had been married before. She had a beautiful house. And I remember as an 18-year-old going to her house, 17-year-old, and seeing how she lived and she was the first person I saw had an American Express card. Um,
mhm.
and just realizing like, oh, so this is what a successful single Black woman, this is how she lives. This is what it looks like. So when I graduated from college, I had that in my head. And then
Mhm,
throughout the years, visiting different people, boyfriends, going to see them in Portland. When you see how other people live, how they cook, how they entertain, what platters they have on the plate, if you're smart or if you are a person who soaks in stuff, I soak it all in. And that stays in my head. And that's how I've been able to um, keep the the essence of growing up around hardworking people in Athens, hardworking people who valued home ownership. But that was only enough to keep the house, pay these bills, and maybe you'll take a drive, go to Six Flags or go to Myrtle Beach. Um, I was able to keep that in my being, but also to soar really beyond my expectations in terms of my career, in terms of experiences. Um,
mhm.
and I'm grateful because all of that stuff has led to me doing a fourth book that's coming out.
Was that a scoop? Is
That's
that a scoop?
That's a scoop. Fourth book, I turned in the manuscript a few weeks ago. It is tentatively titled The Maroon House Cookbook, and it is about the art of gathering and hosting people, just what I talked about. Those spiritual nudges that get folks that help me, not help me, that help me like give me the clue to say, oh, you should have a happy hour, invite people
Mhm.
over. And I'm not just telling people, hey, make sure you have this glass and that glass. I throw that in the mix, but I say, listen, it is important for us to keep traditions alive, not only
Yeah.
Black traditions, but build your own traditions. This is how I do it. You can try my way, but then figure out your own way. So yes, it's being published by Abrams and in 2027.
Well, well, I'm excited and congratulations.
Yes,
Now,
yes, thank you.
how did you happen to name the retreat home the Maroon House? Maroon is getting to be a popular term this year with the opening of Chef Kwame's new restaurant on the Las Vegas Strip.
Yeah, the Maroons. So Kwame Amwache has a Caribbean steakhouse that opened in Vegas that's called the Maroon, or is it just the Maroon?
The
Um,
Maroon Steakhouse.
okay, and there's so many. There are a few other businesses that are called the Maroon as well. Maroons are enslaved Black people who escaped plantations in the Caribbean, in the American South also. And I kind of mentioned this a little bit in Watermelon and Redbirds. There's like a swamp in Virginia called the Dismal Swamp.
Yeah.
Um, and enslaved folks ran away from their plantations and built whole communities in like swamp lands or what have you. And I just always found it intriguing around people in the American South that escape and build these communities, and people knew, hey, go 30 miles north, and you're gonna go deep into the woods, and they, build their own houses, ways to store their food, fish, and it became literally, a way of life, but it also became a place of rest, a place of retreat. So my husband and I, we were trying to come up with what do we name this house? It is maroon outside. There's so a lot of people think we called it the maroon house because of the color, but it's actually because we want to honor so many Black people who left a place or from time to time leave a place to go get rest, to
Mhm.
retreat, to recharge, and to either bring that energy back to their home or create a home that people can come to get that energy. So we named it the Maroon House to honor that.
And it oh, I can just tell it's absolutely fitting. Next time I'll call you when I'm in the area
You gotta come down for sure.
so I can come visit. I have just so enjoyed this conversation. I have one more question for you,
Sure.
Nicole. This is my bonus question, so I didn't share this. Now, where you and I are active certainly in the food space, if you were a food, what would you choose to be?
Ooh, you know what? I like that question. Usually people say, if you had a dinner, who would you invite? Wow, if I was a fool, who would I choose to be? You know what? I think that I would be rhubarb. Um and I'm gonna say because people are always confused about rhubarb. Um it is a spring fruit, vegetable. See, I
Mhm.
don't even know which one it is, right? Um
Okay.
And I think sometimes people really don't know the depth of who I am until they are around me. And
Mhm.
rhubarb, I feel like you don't really like it until you have it um multiple ways, both sweet and savory. Like a rhubarb strawberry pie is amazing. But in watermelon and redbirds, I have a rhubarb barbecue sauce. And when people taste it, they're like, "Woo, this is rhubarb?" So I would be rhubarb, and the color is so vibrant.
Yeah.
It's so beautiful, the red stalks.
Mhm.
So I would be rhubarb. I like that question.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much. And I certainly appreciate that you chose a food that is, I'd say, underrated, unheralded, and people need to learn more about rhubarb and what it brings to the table.
Ooh.
Thank you. And I really appreciate this. I could sit here and talk with you the rest of the day, but I know we all have we have other tasks on our schedules, but I really want to thank you so very much. I have just really enjoyed this. Thank you, Nicole.
I'm honored, and when you're in Atlanta, whenever you wanna come down to Athens, let me know.
Okay, I certainly will, and I'm going to reach out and be picking your brain about the book conversation.
Yeah, you're
Yes.
I could see a memoir from you.
Well, thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I'll think about that. Very
Yeah.
much so. Thank
I
you.
read I recently read an interview you did, so, yes, I could see a memoir.
Did you read the interview about vitiligo?
I read the
That
interview about vitiligo because I have it too.
okay. Well, I was just um I came to grips with it after I lost a dear friend of mine. And I
Mhm.
was sitting in the airport and I said, girl, this is not life threatening. So get a grip.
Yep.
Okay, we'll talk. Thank you so
Okay.
much. Oh,
Thank you,
all
Miss
right.
Charlotte. Have a great
Uh,
happy Juneteenth. Happy early Juneteenth.
and thank you. And right back at you. Happy Juneteenth to you too. Bye bye. Thank you for joining us today for Folks, Food, and Soul. We hope you enjoyed the podcast and we look forward to seeing you again soon.